So people like to crack jokes about Naruto and Sasuke having a weird relationship, but in this episode, Madara and Hashirama, a little odd. Alright, so this week's episode definitely focused mainly on the backstory between Madara and Hashirama, what they went through in the past, and the different obstacles that they had to go through. And to be honest with you, it felt like some strange Romeo and Juliet meets Shinobi type of situation, where they kind of wanted to be friends and they were hiding their last name, and there was just a lot of different things that I felt that this kind of reminded me of, like Romeo and Juliet, without the romantic stuff. Although there was some weird shit, like why is Madara swinging around his wang while he's pink? Fuck it, As far as like this episode goes, definitely I'm glad that we're getting to see a little bit more of what happened in the past, how did they first meet, and the way it was like narrated by Hashirama kind of really fit with like the music and the mood and everything. Definitely I enjoyed this material a lot more in the anime than in the manga. In the manga, to be honest with you, it was like, oh, interesting, but for the most part I didn't really feel like all the deep moments or anything like that. But with the anime right now, it's definitely giving you that emotion and vibe, and when Itama got killed, you definitely feel it. And I like how you getting to see as well, like the Shinobi world has changed quite a bit from these days of what was going on with Madara and Hashirama, and the trials and tribulations that they had to go through as kids compared to now. Like back then they were practically forced to kill one another. Madara pretty much killed a bunch of the Senju clan, probably vice versa with Hashirama. Although it's interesting, you can see at this particular point, it seems as though Madara was slightly more mature than Hashirama. I feel like they were both mature in a sense of like they knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to live peacefully. They didn't want to have war and everything like that. But I felt like Madara was slightly more mature than Hashirama at the very least. And that's probably due to Hashirama's father. You can see that Hashirama's father was a dick. Like Hashirama's father looked like a straight up asshole. Especially like, you're going to follow that boy at the end. And it was kind of like, fucking hell, Definitely this shows as well that sometimes the kids can have it right, and they can see the bigger picture than even, some of the adults. Like, the adults are looking at it, no, we're fighting, we're at war, this is no time for that, and the kids are like, why we gotta fight? Why can't we just, live in peace? And obviously the kids have it right, and the fucking adults are retarded for wanting to just keep on having war instead of sitting down and saying, yo, let's put all the bullshit aside, we can save a lot of lives. I mean, at this particular point, they both have lost siblings. Madara's lost quite a few of them, and all he has left is, I guess it's Azuna at this point, because everyone else has died, and that's the only brother we've heard of. And likewise with Hashirama, he's lost pretty much almost all of his siblings except Tobirama, at the very least one. I think he might have lost more, but he lost, Itama at this particular point, which Itama, seeing him back then, definitely, had he grown up with them, judging from how it was passed down the Hokage seat, he probably would have been like the third Hokage or some shit instead of Sarutobi. They probably would have passed it down to little bro after Tobirama. And I'm wondering who he would have took after had he grown up, because, Tobirama and Hashirama had two different ideals of how to rule. Hashirama was more like a good leader. He was just like, just really nice to everyone. Tobirama seemed like, he was a good leader as well, except, he just had this discrimination later on. Had Itama lived, maybe Tobirama would have not even had that character trait, come and think of it, because I'm sure a big part of what affected both of these characters and who they will ultimately become is these events. You could see the pain in him when he's talking about, I lost most of my brothers at this particular point. Likewise with Hashirama, I think. But Hashirama ultimately will manage to overcome the pain and realize, I can't keep hating. But I think this is where you see the collapse in Madara's ideals. Because as right now, it looks like they both have the right mindset. Let's be good. Let's, do good things and positivity and just end all the bullshit. But it's interesting, it's a steep contrast to who Madara is right now with all the fucking war and everything. So definitely interesting seeing the backstory of these characters. The pacing could be definitely a lot faster. I feel like I would ideally have liked for majority, probably not all, realistically speaking, not all, but majority of the flashback to have happened with this episode, just because, a lot of it isn't really focused on what's going on right now, and a lot of this is just like a history lesson, so Sasuke can make up his mind. But I'd imagine this will play a part in Sasuke's decision heavily, for the simple fact that, you look at it, Sasuke's lost a brother, both of them have lost a brother, so right there, they're on common ground at the very least. He can say, oh fuck, so maybe he does know where I'm coming from when he lost a brother, especially a younger brother at that, to war. And this definitely, it feels a lot more warlike than anything we've experienced in our timeline. Naruto, like, shit looked real serious and intense back then, because they didn't have these big jutsus either. Like, you could tell they had jutsus, but it wasn't nothing like what we have right now. So you can see that there was definitely more of a sad and just hard vibe that they had to live. Like, you know, life back then was just really fucked up and hard. It's just really a shame that had the fathers not got involved, especially, you know, Hashirama's father just right there telling him, oh, we're gonna do this, maybe they could have talked some sense into their dad, maybe if they would have not been so hard-headed. But ultimately, this is the past, and this is where everything started. And I liked this episode. It was a good episode, getting a little bit of the backstory, getting the characterization of who they were back then to who they are now. You can definitely see Hashirama, aside from, you know, getting wiser and everything, for the most part, he didn't really change from back then. Madara, however, you can still see he had that badass personality intact. Even as a kid, he was kind of like, you know, fuck you, what do you mean? But ultimately, this is where it starts. The hatred and everything, because of just their parents and the war and everything, that'll continuously add to who they are today. And unfortunately, Hashirama was able to endure while Madara didn't. And that was one of the things that Hashirama said as well: I'll endure as long as possible in order to get the best outcome. But Madara, you know, he just couldn't do it. So I'm gonna give this one 7 out of 10. Good episode for the most part. I would have liked the pacing to definitely have been a little bit faster. Not that I want to blitz through this, but ultimately the pacing felt a little bit slow with this one. And again, it's not too relative as far as to, like, you know, the overall picture. I mean, it gives you some backstory as to that, but a lot of it was them skipping rocks and talking about life and shit like that. And while it was chill and everything, it didn't overall progress, you know, things all that much. Let me know what you guys think. First of all, what do you think regarding this backstory? For any manga readers, do you feel as though the anime was more enjoyable and did this material better? I definitely felt that way. And also, what did you think regarding just the relationship between Madara and Hashirama? Without the romance shit, did it remind you of like Romeo and Juliet, with the both families warring and them wanting to be friends? And, you know, just overall the picture and the story of it. I mean, they did have some weird shit in there, but ultimately you can see it's just like they want to be friends, and unfortunately their last names is what stops them. And that's really kind of an eye-opener, how something as trivial as your fucking last name can stop you from being friends and pit one another against each other. So it's unfortunate. And just your overall thoughts of the episode, I felt it was a good one. I liked overall what was going on in it, but it definitely could have been a lot quicker. And ultimately it was just, you know, giving the backstory of these two guys and where it all began. That's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, you can do so as well. That'd be awesome. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.